Welcome to another episode of Challenging the Norm. Here's an hers look at life and business with your hosts, Paul Snell and myself, Lindsey Burden. The podcast for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and business owners that want to experience success in their own way. Wrestling with the topics that matter and reality checking the latest trends in business. Paul works with business owners, showing them how they can take the stress out of transforming teams into performance powerhouses that love what they do, while I offer business coaching that empowers ambitious women in business to create financial abundance and a time-rich lifestyle without sacrificing their joy. Here we are again, Paul, for another episode of Challenging the Norm. And we have been discussing various topics in the last half an hour when we were supposed to be actually recording. We've got a really juicy one today. Before we get started, how are you? I'm freezing, but how are you?
I'm actually really good, to be honest with you. The weather's not great, but hey, we live in the UK. Weather was good over the weekend, not so good, and it's Monday now. But I'm really well. I'm looking forward to the more sun, the longer days. Went out for walks. It sounds idyllic, doesn't it? But it's just wet at the moment.
Yeah, it's not very, very nice, is it? But I am 100% human again after not feeling very well. So I'm super excited about today's topic. And we want to kind of explore, not kind of, we're going to try and explore whether having a family or responsibilities impacts your ability to create success in your business.
Yes.
Which is a rather big topic. Now I've said it out loud. We were talking about it and I sort of brought it to the table because I kind of went, well, it's really difficult for women because we got the family. Well, it came about because at a networking group, we were asked the question, what is impacting or preventing you from growing your business, from being successful? And I said, my kids. Who I love dearly, I should just point out. But I had them late in life, so they are a responsibility. They take up time and energy. And the hours that I have available are different, perhaps, from the next person. And it might even be the next person with children or, another responsibility. And I think we were kind of mulling it over whether this would work, because there are lots of nuances to this, aren't there, Paul?
There are. In fact, as you're talking, I'm going, oh, there's a new nuance I've just thought of. Excuse me. There are many nuances to this, and it is actually quite a relevant topic. Certainly when you talk about responsibilities as a whole, I think there's lots to that. I can think of my experiences in business, and you have to bear in mind that we are maybe of a generation where traditionally there was a husband or a father, in most cases, not all, I accept that, in most cases where there was a responsibility there to provide. There's also the responsibility to bring up children, and mothers do that predominantly. Again, not exclusively, because I know there are single dads that do exactly that, but it's still responsibilities either way. And I think when you consider the idea of how there's two things that come to mind. One is a little bit controversial, and I've got a question, and I'd be interested to know your view on that. So we'll ask that question in a sec. The second part is this idea. So how would you develop balance? Lindsey, you've had experience of that, and I guess success and the definition of that comes into play. But my first question, the first thing to me is, and it's a question that I'm hoping you can just answer rather than go, Paul, I can't believe you asked that question. And that is, so what's more important to you, the business or the family?
Big pause. I mean, it's obviously the family, isn't it? Because I'm very fortunate to have them. And I've talked about this before. I had my daughter when I was 42 and my son when I was 44. That's not really supposed to happen. But then I didn't find my husband until I was 39, all those kind of things. Not that you need a husband to have children, I should hasten out. So there's the mother in me that says it has to be my children. there's the CEO in me that says, well, it's got to be the business, because without the business, we haven't got the money to keep the roof over our head and, you know, provide the life. So there is a real push and pull for me. The mother in me says the family. The other half of me says the business.
Yeah, and I sort of expected that answer. I would have been a little bit disappointed if it had gone either way. There's, you know, it's all right. It's a provocative question, and I loved your answer, because I'm sitting there thinking the same way. Right? There's, at the end of the day, how many times have we heard, whether we are talking about working for another company or in our own business, to say your family will always be there. Your business may not, your job may not. You know, I find it interesting when you look at just how much time the average person spends in a 9-to-5 job, and do that for 40 years. And one statistic goes to get 11 years where you haven't got to do it, right? So I'm in agreement with you. I feel that one is intrinsically linked to the other, personally. Whether you have a business or you have a job, and for this moment in time, we won't differentiate much until we get into the detail, but whether you have a business or job, there's still a responsibility. And I felt this hugely when I started my business. And I started my business 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, I would have had a 1-year-old, and I would have had 2 other kids still at home. And I felt immense responsibility to ensure that I continued to pay the mortgage, that I paid the bills. Otherwise, the impact was much broader. And you and I, Lindsey, were talking about another subject of what would we do differently if when we start again. And that's part of it for me. I don't begrudge that responsibility. I don't begrudge having my family. I don't begrudge making decisions for my family, even in my business. But if I were in my early 20s and I didn't have responsibility, I might do things slightly differently, just because, in hindsight, because that's really easy hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that magical thing that's 20/20 vision. I would have done more things, maybe, to prepare for a future, and maybe in business. Lots of ifs, buts, and maybes. I told you the story when I was 16 of, you know, had done my A-levels, ready to go to medical school. And then someone effectively knocked on the door and said, you know, this new world, this new IT world that's coming, that's going to be the big thing. Would you like to be part of that? And I was in a sliding doors moment. Do I jump on that, or do I stick to what my vocation was? And I loved it with a passion, the idea of becoming a doctor and a GP. And I chose IT because it was exciting, because it was new, because it was, and it's done me really well, but it doesn't stop me thinking about what if. And so when I bring that back round to the subject of today and responsibilities, I think it's really important to recognize that when you have responsibilities, for me, they're non-negotiable. For a family, to whether you're providing, whether you're a mum, I'm not going to distinguish the difference, but I will say I consciously went into having children, buying a house. I didn't do that blindly. And so I made a decision, and everything else needed to fit around that, including my business.
Yeah, I think for me, because being being a mum did not come naturally. You know, I was 42 and I just had a baby, and I had no idea how to change a nappy. Never changed a nappy, not been near babies, didn't know what to do with them. And I did start a book about it many years ago, The Guilt of a Mother, as it was titled. I didn't finish it, but it was trying to look at that idea in those early days of, you know, being a mother, and, you know, supposedly it comes naturally and you feel this, you know, this love and everything for this child, which didn't happen for me. And you know, some days it's still a struggle when they're annoying me. But actually, I'd lived a life without children. I'd lived a life. And so to lose almost myself, to lose any, you know, suddenly I'm not important. And I think that particularly for women is a real challenge. We are already, and you know, women, men who look, you know, single parents, single fathers, all of those. And you may have felt this as well, but you are so far down the list.
Mm.
Before children, you are a long way down the list. If you know, and it because women do that we do that to ourselves. Add in children, you've really come down the list. You know, got a business, I'm really down the list.
Yeah.